Hi, I'm DR Fay from Mouthy Broad Media, and I wanted to become a certified podcast growth coach because I wanted to give my clients more than what I was giving them before. So, Mouthy Broad Media is a one stop shop production house where we do all the editing, the show notes, and the promotional assets. But something was missing, and I really wanted to give them more. So that's why I decided to go through the course. And my clients are overjoyed because we are already seeing the results. It is fantastic. My favorite part of the course was Adam himself. So if you have followed Adam on any of his shows, you know how funny he can be, but he can also be very, very informative. He's a data guy. He likes to rip things apart, put it back together, reverse engineer, and we are benefiting from all of that. So, Adam, thank you so much for everything.
Hey there, Pod Pals. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to give you a quick heads up that I'm opening up registration for my next podcast growth coach certification cohort. This certification program is ideal for any podcast managers or coaches that want to learn my proven podcast growth system and add a podcast growth service to their business platform. Our next certification cohort will launch in September of 2024, and you can get more info and apply to join with the link in the episode notes or head on over to www.podcastingbusiness.school. What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you are listening to Podcasting Business School. It's a show where I teach podcasters how to love their podcast like a hobby and build it like a business. And today in this episode, we are talking about my 7 podcast content planning tips for your solo episodes. Content planning is really important because I see a lot of podcasters that just kind of fade away and quit because they do not plan in advance. They're kind of fired up when they launch, and then each week it's a battle to get that weekly episode out, and they start taking breaks, and that downward spiral starts to happen. Now, bonus content planning pro tip: try not to record your podcast when there's construction going on outside your window. They're redoing the streets here in our suburb of St. Louis, Missouri, and they fake me out like, oh, looks like we're done, and then here we go again. So I apologize if there's any like peripheral construction sounds. Hopefully not too bad. So that's a bonus tip for you. But I've got 7 strategies around solo episode content planning, especially because, with interviews, if you have an interview-based show, if you do a lot of interviews, that kind of takes care of itself. But when I'm encouraging people to follow my 2/3 content rule for expert positioning, if you're a service provider and you're trying to leverage your show to get more clients, solo episodes are really important. And especially if you're used to doing only interviews, it can be a little bit of a challenge going, how do I do this solo episode thing? And how do I map out that type of content? How do I map out when I do solos, when I do interviews, and all that? So we're going to cover all that in these 7 strategies. All right. So my first solo episode content planning strategy is to have an episode idea bank. Have this on your phone, notepad, computer. I just keep an Evernote doc. That way I can update it on my phone or on my computer. And whenever I get a solo episode idea, it goes into the idea bank. And I've got a giant list that I review as I'm mapping out my content. I tend to kind of map out my content about 4 to 8 weeks in advance. And when I know the goal of my content and things like that, I go, okay, let's review the idea bank. Let's pluck some episode ideas from that tree and let's put them into the game plan. So just having an episode idea bank, having a location on your phone, your tablet, your computer, a written copy, whatever, where you can just jot down episode ideas as they come. I'm telling you, it will be super helpful. And that way you can just kind of, like I said, pluck the ripe ideas off that tree and use them when you need them. The second strategy is I really like the idea, if you're a newer podcaster, especially if you're in your first year of podcasting, I always tell people to do this. Like when I consult on a launch, is to map out weekly content for 52 episodes, 52 weeks. So even if you're doing interviews mixed in with solos, just map out, and it doesn't have to be specific topics, but you go, okay, week 1, episode 1, solo episode. Week 2 is going to be an interview, and I'm probably going to plug this person in there. and fill it out with the actual content topics as far out as you can. So maybe you get the first 4 or 5 weeks kind of mapped out, and then you just have those open slots of solo episode here, interview there, coaching episode there. And then as the content is created, you can start to plug those in. So I don't really expect people to have every episode, every title, every topic for 52 weeks. But um, if you're going to do every other week an interview and then every other week a solo episode, what you could do is go, all right, I need 26 solo topics. So I'm going to make my idea bank. I'm going to build my idea bank up to 26 or more so that I can fill in that every other week cadence with one of these really good ideas that I've got. So you're going to look at, how many episodes per week are we doing? What types of episodes are we doing each week with your 52-week map out? And again, don't stress out and be like, Adam needs me to have 52 weeks of episodes, with show notes and titles and optimized keywords. No, this is a work in progress. Again, especially if you're a brand new podcaster, the goal is just to get to 52 weeks of weekly content, and then you're going to be way ahead of the game. All right, strategy number 3. We got to talk to our audience. We got to ask your audience what content they want. So social media, if you do some email marketing, if you're at live events, anytime somebody comes across your path and they go, hey, I love your show, or I listened to your show, or if you're in a setting where like maybe you're on a Zoom chat or a networking group, and a lot of your ideal listeners are in that group that you're talking to or talking with, start hitting them up. Go, hey, what are your main pain points? What are you really struggling with? What are you dealing with right now that's a main pain point? And they will tell you. And these are all great episode ideas that will go right into your episode idea bank. If you can create episodes that solve pain points for your ideal listener, that's always a good thing. Same thing when you're creating offers for those of you building an online business out there. But the main way we're going to figure out what they're struggling with is to ask them what they're struggling with. All right. And, like I know that content planning, especially for solo episodes, is a pain point. I talk to you guys pretty often. And when I'm doing podcast odd episodes, people are like, okay, I'll try solo episodes. I'm just a little bit nervous about how to pull that off. So that's why I'm doing an episode like this. All right. That's the third strategy. The fourth strategy is to try to dial in and figure out what your core topics are. Like, what is your show really about? What is your audience? What are they depending on you to produce content for? Like, what topics? Right? What do they really need you to hone in on? So for this show, I really have 2 core topics. One is podcast growth, and the other one is online business development. Like, this show is ideal for coaches, consultants, service providers that want to leverage a podcast so they can get more clients and grow their online business or build their online business. So it's an online business show, but I'm teaching you as podcasters how to build an online business. And the main pain point in podcasting is growth. A lot of you have figured out how to launch a show on your own, whether it's optimized or not, that's to be debated. But most people that come into my world have already launched. So I don't spend a lot of time on launching, but I talk about growth because that's a major pain point. With growth comes engagement. So those are kind of in the same basket together. And then we talk about making money. We talk about client acquisition and online business development strategies. All right, those are my core topics. What are your core topics that your listeners are depending on you to deliver on a weekly basis? And again, this is something that's going to be developed. If you're a younger podcaster, if you're in your first year or even in your first 100 episodes, these are things that you're going to have to figure out, and you may need to pivot on these. So give yourself a little bit of flexibility to do so. Strategy number 5. I want you to figure out your 5 to 10 essential yearly episode topics. A lot of people with solo episodes get stressed out. They're like, I can only talk about this once, ever, one and done. And I think that is not a great strategy. This is episode number 501. All right. There are certain topics. I've got about 12 actually for this show that I'm like, I have to cover these every single year because I can't bank on the fact of, like, if this is your first episode that you've ever listened to, welcome. But I can't bank on you going back and listening to the other 500 episodes. That's unrealistic. All right. If you get hundreds of episodes or even over 50 episodes, I think that you need to really look and go, okay, what are the 5, maybe 10 topics I need to repeat every single year with an episode, a solo episode, because these are core things. So for me, I'll talk about my podcasting success timeline, my podcast monetization pyramid, the 2/3 content rule for expert positioning. I'll talk about paid ads on podcast player apps like Overcast FM. Like these are core topics, organic discoverability with the podcast name and things like that. I will talk about those every single year because that's my duty to educate you and the new listeners. And sometimes for those of you that have been around for many hundred episodes, many years, I appreciate you. But maybe the second or third time you hear it, it's the right time and it really sinks in. And we also can't bank on the fact that everybody listens to every episode. Maybe the title didn't hit them the right way and they didn't listen. So what are your 5 to 10 yearly episode topics that are like, if you need to deliver an audio course to your audience to get them the best result possible, what are those 5 to 10 episodes? And I keep those in my idea bank so that I can always kind of factor that in and go, okay, I've got these 12 for me that I need to talk about every single year. Where do they fit in? What's optimal for that timing? Okay, that's strategy number 5. Strategy number 6 is similar. All right. But I'm going to expand this a little bit. So, strategy number 6 is to reuse old episode topics. So, even outside of these 5 to 10, like core essential episodes, like every single year, these have to be taught. So, strategy number 5. And strategy number 6, like I said, I've got 501 episodes now. And I will scroll back a couple hundred episodes and just look for topics that I haven't talked about in a while and topics that actually performed really well on the show. So like you guys downloaded and listened to quite a bit. This episode I last talked about on episode number 361. I took my notes from that episode and I remade them, added some things. I've learned some things. I've got some different viewpoints, some different angles of approach here. So this isn't, obviously it's not the same audio. I don't recommend that. Like unless you're in a real pinch and you just got to get out an episode that you can kind of do a greatest hits episode. But I like fresh content, a fresh take on this topic. I switch some things out. I combine some things. So it's not the exact same episode, but I use those notes as a base and it saves a lot of time too. I'm like, this is a great topic. I know you guys struggle with it. In episode 361, I wasn't talking specifically about solo episodes. Now I am to dial it in a little bit more. But, I know some of you have hundreds of episodes like I do. Go back in the Wayback Machine and just kind of scan through as you're farming for ideas and see which topics kind of strike you as interesting. Then go back and look at your data on Libsyn or Buzzsprout or wherever you host and go, oh, that actually performed really well. Let's do another version of that and take your notes. A lot of you already have show notes for that, bullet points for your solo episodes, whatever. Pull them over, rework them, optimize them, and re-release another version of that episode. Right? Again, this episode last aired at 361. And I know a lot of you were listening 140 episodes ago, but a lot of you weren't. All right. So this is a great example of this strategy. Now, the 7th strategy, the final strategy, is something I call a content campaign cycle. This is a little bit more advanced for the service providers out there, the coaches that are out there trying to get clients with their show. But I want you to align your content with whatever it is that you're selling and do it strategically. All right. So like if I am going to have an online course, let's say I've got a social media marketing show and I've got a new online boot camp on Instagram growth. Well, I'm going to, for 3 or 4 weeks, do a content campaign cycle all about Instagram growth tips. And I'm going to promote my show or my new course on the show as that call to action. So this can help you come up with content ideas where you go, okay, what's that thing that I'm about to open the cart with or open the sales page for? And then what solo episodes do I have in my idea bank, or what solo episodes have I done before? That would be really effective messaging that if people like this episode, they're probably going to be interested at least a little bit in what it is that I'm promoting or selling. These can be done for free challenges and things like that as well. Okay. So that is the 7th content strategy that I like using for solo episodes, right? Quick recap. Number one, have an idea bank in Evernote file or Google Doc. Number two, map out the weekly content strategy for 52 weeks. Number three, ask your audience what they want, specifically what pain points they are dealing with. Number four, figure out what your core topics are and really deliver on those every single time you do a solo episode. Strategy number five, figure out your 5 to 10 essential yearly episode topics. Strategy number six, if you've got over 50 episodes or more, go back in that Wayback Machine, find some greatest hits and redo them and release them as fresh episodes. And then strategy number seven, align your content with your launch topic or the thing that you're selling or promoting, and create a content campaign cycle around that. All right, Pod Pals, that is all for today. Shorter episode, for under 15 minutes. I get that question a lot. People are like, how long should my episodes be? And the length of the episode should be however long it takes for you to deliver what you have to say effectively. And I feel like I've done that here today. So for those of you that feel like you have to have a 45-minute solo episode or an hour-long solo episode because your interviews are an hour long, I don't believe that. So 15 minutes, we are good to go, Pod Pals. I appreciate you for supporting the show. And with that, I'm going to send you out into the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. I will see you next time. Attention all podcast editors, podcast producers, podcast managers, and podcast coaches. I'm now taking applications for my next podcast growth coach certification cohort. If you're ready to learn my proven podcast growth system and add a podcast growth service to your offer platform, just use the link in the episode notes to get more info and apply to join the next certification group in September of 2024.